Welcome to Real Herbalism Radio. Real herbs, real life, real easy. Brought to you by The Practical Herbalist at www.thepracticalherbalist.com. Sponsored by Mountain Rose Herbs, purveyors of high-quality organic bulk herbs, gourmet spices, loose leaf teas, essential oils, herbal extracts, and natural body care ingredients. Visit them at www.mountainroseherbs.com. Episode 1. On today's show, Candace and Sue will discuss strawberry from its amazing dental benefits to what makes strawberry a wealth of healing in one sweet, tasty package. Later, in Herbalism 101, we will tell you what it means when an herb has antimicrobial properties. Then in our herbal news segment, we will cover whether or not coffee can be truly healthy. Here are your hosts from thepracticalherbalist.com, Candace Hunter and Sue Sierra Lupe.
We're your hosts, Candace Hunter and
Sue Sierra Lupe.
Today we're going to be talking about herbal care using the humble strawberry. We've just recently published an herbal folio called The Practical Herbalist's Herbal Folio Strawberry, a wealth of healing in one sweet, tasty package, which talks about strawberry as an herb. It's not really what you think of as a common herb, is it, Sue?
It certainly isn't. Everyone's familiar with it, certainly on top of strawberry shortcake. And people are used to seeing the leaves and the plants, and they're just wonderful little patio plants. But to use the leaf internally or topically is something that most people just aren't aware of, and yet it's everywhere, and it's fantastic medicine.
You're right. And even the strawberry itself makes a terrific medicine, and we just don't think about it. Mm-hmm. Yet it's all around us. I mean, strawberry makes an awesome garden plant for ground cover, especially in the shady areas under trees. It thrives.
That's very true.
And children recognize it.
Yep. It's easy to grow. You can grow it in a pot if you only have a little apartment. I've known people that have had just the right sunny window and they've grown it as an indoor plant. And it's just a very cheerful, simple plant for anyone to start with. And if you're the kind of person that likes to wildcraft, what better plant to start with than strawberry? It's so easy to identify. I don't even know of any other plant that looks like it, except another type of strawberry.
Exactly. And one of the things that I found really interesting about strawberry was that it's got one particular use I would never have considered it for, and that's dental care. Indeed,
yeah. Both the fruit and the leaf are good for dental care.
That's right. Let's start with the fruit. What was it about the fruit that's particularly useful?
Well, every plant has distinctive pieces in it that make it unique. And for strawberry, it has something called malic acid. And actually, malic acid is something that you'll find in a lot of different fruits. It's what you see in an unripe fruit or in something that looks unripe, like green grapes or green apple. But for strawberry, even as it ripens and some of those acids turn into the sweet taste that we're used to, the malic acid tends to linger, giving it that sweet tart taste that we so love in strawberries. So for that particular constituent, and a constituent is just a plant part, dentists take malic acid and they use it to clean your teeth just before putting a filling in a cavity. Now, that is something that you don't have to go to the dentist for to get. You can just get it at your grocery store. And you had a recipe, didn't you, for...
Yeah, I've used raw strawberries, nice fresh ripe strawberries, just from the grocery, because I'm kind of practical and lazy in that way. And I happen to have sage growing in my garden, so I grabbed a few leaves of that and squished that up and chopped the sage up really good, turned it into sort of a paste with the strawberry, added some, I think it was baking soda. Yeah, baking soda. Added some baking soda to that and pasted it on my teeth because I drink a lot of tea, so I get those lovely tea stains on my teeth. Mm-hmm. And at that particular time, we didn't have any health insurance, and I had just moved to the area we were living in. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have my own family dentist either, so I did that to kind of whiten my teeth. And it worked fairly well, although it tasted pretty awful. But it did work. And since then, I've used the strawberry as I'm eating them. My husband doesn't necessarily enjoy watching me do it, but I take the strawberries and I just scrub my teeth right there with them.
Yeah, and when you're done with it, I've just used strawberry itself just to scrub. Like after I eat the strawberry, then I'll take the end that's attached to the leaf and use that as the scrubber part. And I know it does look kind of funny, but you can feel the tingle on your gums, and your teeth themselves feel nice and squeaky clean. And the other option is going to a dentist. That in our town, particularly right now after the ACA has just kicked in, finding a dentist, extremely difficult. They're all very, very busy. And I'd never advocate not going to the dentist if you had an infection or a cavity, but something to tide you over, because you always get a dental infection Friday after the dentist is closed.
Oh, exactly.
That every single time without fail. When would you get it? Monday morning. No. That's not the way things work. So just something to tide you over. That seems like it's a really nice way of handling it.
Right. So beyond the strawberry fruit, there's also the strawberry leaf that you can use.
Yeah.
Now, how do you use strawberry leaf and why does it work for dental care?
Well, there's in your mouth, there's all kinds of different bacteria, and some bacteria are particularly detrimental, and they focus on boring little holes in your teeth. And the constituents, or the particular chemicals that are inside a strawberry leaf, work against that bacteria that also lives in your mouth. Now, the strawberry has to make these chemicals in their leaf in order to fight off bacteria that live in their environment. So for some certain places, there's more of what type of bacteria than another. And those same bacteria that are in the environment that the strawberry lives in is also in your mouth. So the strawberry leaf, you just take either dry or fresh, and you can add that to add a liquid base to it. Vinegar is one of my favorites, although a lot of people really enjoy alcohol. Then you can use that as a dental rinse. And in our clinic, we will combine different types of plant matter together, strawberry or sage, like you said, or thyme. Thyme is one of the things that you find in other over-the-counter medications for dental issues. You can also add antibiotics like Oregon grape, and we've used Oregon grape berry because it's certainly a lot tastier than that tangy, super, super bitter root. Myrrh is another good combination, and we give that to patients that have severe infections. If you're going to a clinic because you have a mouth ulcer, it's because you have extreme inflammation and you're in a lot of pain.
Most of the people that you see at your clinic are actually people who are homeless or who may have homes but live right at the edge of poverty there. So they're people who really struggle to get even proper nutrition.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a lot worse dental problems than a majority of us.
Yeah. And sadly, what we're seeing with just people that are housed as well as people that are unhoused is a lot of people right now in our economy are having to work 2 jobs, and they aren't able to spend as much time with their family or cooking really good food. So they're eating fast food. They're eating stuff that it is high carbs that's really easy to get some good energy in them really fast. Unfortunately, you're seeing that kind of neglect on their bodies, and particularly in their mouth.
Sure, all those carbohydrates and the fats and the salts in the fast foods that we eat, and many of the restaurant foods that we eat, convert into sugars in our bloodstream and in our bodies quickly, which encourages the growth of bacteria and feeds it rather than making it a harder place for bacteria to live.
Yep.
And that definitely would show up in people's mouths.
Salt crackers that a lot of people eat, or white rice, that turns into sugar in your mouth.
Sure.
That's right there. And people are using that as a dietary staple. It's really cheap food, but it's also really harmful on the body, unfortunately, used out of moderation.
Right. So strawberry leaf is something that can be powerful for all of us, not just people who are on the edge, but all of us who are living fast-paced, busy lives, trying to get our kids to school and after-school activities, cover all our bases with work, get the dog on the walk, all of that.
Very true. And strawberry leaf, just as a tea, it has a green tea-like taste. And I know we have a few recipes on our website for different ways, a dental scrub as well as a strawberry leaf tea recipe with calendula for helping healing not only of the things inside of the mouth that might have some irritations, but also just internally in the body. There are so many wonderful things that your body needs that plants provide. We are meant to eat plants. Our bodies are just meant to eat them. And it's fun to get a different array of different types of plants in there. And strawberries everywhere, my goodness.
That's true. And one of the things that's nice about the strawberry and the strawberry leaf is that children find it so attractive. It's not hard to get a little kid to eat a strawberry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that in itself is really good there. And when my son was younger, he had canker sores that would come up, and we had no idea why. They stopped when he was around 5 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
But he had these canker sores. They'd occasionally show up, and some herbalist way back when had suggested to me a tincture with strawberry leaf lawn daisies and lemon balm.
Oh, wonderful lemon balm.
Yeah, so we put those 3 together in a tincture, and I would use just a dropper full and like 4 ounces of water. And since it was such a light dosage, I'd let him swallow it. So he'd swish it around the canker sore real good and swallow it. And sure enough, usually within hours, the pain would be down. And within 3 days, the canker sore would be gone. It wasn't hard to get him to take that medicine at all, even though he was a picky little boy.
A lot of little kids are. Yep, they like sweets. That's what they like. And a couple different flavors like lemon, and then the strawberry leaf is a fairly bland, like I said, green tea taste. So that's not tough to get a kid to do it, or an adult. I know there are lots of kids that will try different things just because their parents tell them to, but get an adult to do it, oh, that's a totally different matter.
That is so true. Do you have a hard time with that in your clinic?
Sometimes we do, but fortunately and unfortunately, people that come to us are at the end of their rope. So
they're willing to try
anything. Just about anything, because a lot of times they're in fairly severe pain. We've seen, and I know I've mentioned this before, people that come into the clinic and they've got dental problems, and we have a Sunday clinic. So again, it happens when the dentists and other medical facilities are closed. So their infection is so bad it prevents them from turning their neck because the swelling goes all the way down their neck, and that's a sign that it's getting septic into the...
That's dangerous levels.
Oh, very much. So that can go right to the heart.
Oh yeah, that can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that strawberry leaf is able to help tide them over till the next day when they can get in to see, hopefully a dentist or a doctor as necessary. One of the things that comes up in our culture frequently is the question of organic or not organic, wild-crafted or not wild-crafted. Mm-hmm. Now, strawberries everywhere. Mm-hmm. I've used strawberry from my garden, so it's organic-ish. I rent a house, so I don't know who lived here before I rented. I don't know whether they were organic, but I've never used any chemicals in my garden.
Right.
So it's been organic as long as I've been here.
Right, yeah.
And I live in the city, so I've got city traffic. This is no farm in the country. I wish it were, but it's not. And it's cultivated strawberries. I've used that, but is that really the best medicine? Is it worth it for most of us to go on expedition into the wilderness to find wild strawberry?
Well, I definitely would say so. It's when you're talking about delicate tissue like in the mouth, you've got an exposed muscle, which is your tongue. It's your only exposed muscle. If you look at a pesticide, a classic pesticide, under a microscope, you see it's all bristly like a hedgehog. And one of the things that some of these pesticides, herbicides do is they tear as they go into the body system, and that's how they kill. That's not something that you really want in your body in large amounts, especially when you've already got some dental issues or some open sores. I'm not saying that it would exacerbate it, but if you have a choice of something that is just suited to heal as opposed to something that is going to be on the surface of the leaf that you're using or on the surface of the fruit that you're using, why do that to yourself? Why not just use something that doesn't have a warning label on it? If you look at the warning labels on fertilizers, the artificial fertilizers, on the herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, they tell you to suit up, put a respirator on. Why would you have something like that? Put it purposely in your mouth, especially when you're feeling a little ill and your immune system is already suppressed. That doesn't make any sense to me. And strawberry in our area grows all over the place. It's just, you go to the coast and there it is on the dunes. You go to some of these beautiful woodlands and there's wild strawberry. And I prefer the wild strawberry to the cultivated strawberry because it's compact. The plant has to work harder in order to defend itself, which means it's making more of those chemicals that we use in order to heal ourselves, whereas the cultivated strawberry, it's getting a lot of water and a lot of fertilizer, and it gets huge because it can. That's mostly right. Water that you're using. So wild crafted pesticide, herbicide, artificial fertilizer-free strawberry from the woodlands is going to give a lot more medicine than a cultivated one. But again, you use what you got, because we're practical herbalists, so we use what we got.
Sure, yeah. And I think that if you're facing a life without dental care, or you're facing a situation where you know you're going to have to go quite a while before you can see a dentist, then you're going to aim for the best medicine you can possibly get from the wild. For my son's canker sores, the strawberries out of my yard that are as organic as I can make them, those leaves worked.
Yep.
I washed them, and we don't use anything that is unnatural on them. And truth be told, I probably don't water them as much as I should, so they might actually be closer to their wild cousins than they ought to be.
When you smell the wild strawberry as opposed to a cultivated strawberry, it's just far more fragrant to smell a wild strawberry. You can actually
They smell sweeter. They smell considerably sweeter. I've noticed that too. And I've noticed the leaves on wild strawberries tend to be a much darker, richer green than than my poor little strawberries in my garden.
Yeah, they're just beautiful little chemical factories, and they're our friends.
Now, there's a word you've used a couple times, and I want to come back to it because it was one that was really hard for me to understand and really begin to make sense of, and that's constituents.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about herbalists talk about constituents all the time, and it was something that was a challenge for me when I was first starting as an herbalist. It was hard to even remember the word constituent, let alone what all those chemicals names meant.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we talk about constituents? What is so important about them in understanding how to use an herb?
Right. Well, constituents are just chemical plant parts, and just like different humans have different constituents in their personalities. They're just different parts in their personality. For instance, you have a friend that might be really big into swimming and really enjoys going out and getting milkshakes and is very social. Another friend might be a little more bookish and prefer quiet walks. And there's just different parts or constituents to a person in a person's life. There's also different parts and chemical makeup of different plants, and those distinguish that plant from another plant. If you look at the different chemical constituents in one plant, that is how a scientist will determine what family or what species the plant is. It's its signature. It's something that the plant has to make as a species or as a family, depending on how far back it goes, to help it survive and to define itself and to put itself firmly in the little environmental niche that it lives in.
So that helps explain why some families of herbs, like mint, for instance, they tend to have certain aspects that they all kind of do. Mm-hmm. Like most mints are warming. Mm-hmm. There's a couple, like lavender, that aren't, but for the most part, they tend to be all warming. And they all tend to have like square stems. And is that kind of explain some of that?
Their chemical makeup helps define who they are.
Okay.
So, and that is kind of funny. Sometimes if you're a big time plant nerd, then you'll take a look at some of the literature and you see, oh, this plant has changed its plant species or plant family name several different times, and that's just these scientists arguing about whether it has more of one constituent or another.
And
keeps them busy.
For strawberry, then, is there any specific constituents that are the ones that we're really looking for? You mentioned the malic acid, and I know there's also tannins. Are tannins and malic acid pretty much the same thing, or are they different? That's
a really good question. With tannins, you find tannins in green tea or anything that is astringent, something that will...
The tannins are the ones that cause the body to, like the cells to shrink, or kind of like when you're cold and you
release
just kind of...
mucus and things. Yeah,
exactly. They kind of close down a little bit. Constrict, yes.
That's the word I'm looking
Constrict.
for. Tannins are what cause body parts and cells to constrict. So if you have an inflammation and there's a lot of pus or unpleasantness in there or too much fluid, then a astringent or a tannin will go in there and it will cause constriction so that fluid can be released. So that's one of the ways it decreases inflammation or takes out infection, because the infection is living in little fluid base. and constricting it just releases.
So tannins are a constituent, but astringent is an herbal property, correct?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so what are some of the constituents besides malic acid that are in strawberry fruit and or leaf?
Well, it's got a lot of citric acid, of course. We know that, and it's got its own natural sugars, and the riper the strawberry fruit is, then the more sugar it has in it. Really, if you're using a strawberry fruit, you don't want the ripest one. You want one that's a little less ripe because it will have more of those acids before they're converted into sugar.
So you're looking for the strawberries that still have a bit of their slightly tanginess.
Exactly, yeah. And funny thing about malic acid is it's also used as a flavor, and it's very tart. If you were to take a bite of rhubarb, well, you got a big old mouthful of malic acid. You can taste it, and oh my goodness, your whole body will contract because it is just, it is so tart. And that's what the flavor tastes like. So originally it was isolated, that malic acid was isolated from green apples. And you see the echo of that in the species name for Malus, which is the genus name for apple.
Oh, okay.
Yep, interesting. But
that is kind of interesting.
Yeah, the leaves and the fruit have the vitamin C, and there's catechins, which you see in green tea as well, and that's that astringent. A lot of people have done some research about catechins that are primarily, they're looking at green tea for that, but it's also in strawberry leaf, and they're analyzing how that affects cancer treatment.
Oh, okay.
Which there's so much.
So many applications.
There's so many applications, and there's so much research coming out. I don't think this is the proper time or space to talk about that.
We could go on for hours.
Oh my goodness,
there.
yes, yeah.
Right there. So, I think that kind of explains constituents. I mean, for me, I find that remembering the herbal actions kind of helps, but I find just really getting to know the herb and using it is the real. That's how I've really started to remember what's good, what for what.
Yeah.
So, some of the ways that we can use the leaf, for instance, in dental care would be as a tincture. We talked about that. There's also dental scrubs and dental rinses. Internally,
you can take strawberry leaf tea if you've got someone who's very sensitive and they have diarrhea. If you were, because, again, it's an astringent. It's got the tannins in it, so it's going to cause all that swelling, which causes the diarrhea to decrease.
Sure.
So you see, you're thinking about perhaps a small child and adding other anti-diarrhea things like a little bit of applesauce to their diet or something like that that's easy for them to tolerate. But strawberry leaf tea, put what other kind of fun little thing in there.
Well, and if diarrhea is part of the thing, but their teeth could use some help, you could add the Oregon grape and the Melanthius. Isn't that another one that you said you've used at the clinic quite a lot?
For teeth, yeah. Melanthius is a wonderful herb, and we could do our own show completely on Melanthius. It's so nice. Classically, people are numbing dental pain using clove, and that's pretty much what clove does, is it numbs it.
Sure, I had a dry socket once, and that's what they did, was packed a bunch of clove oil in it.
Yeah, it's it's very effective in that way. But Melanthius causes the numbing, but it's also antiseptic. So it pulls the infections out of there. And it's another one of those classic combinations that we have at clinic, strawberry leaf with Melanthius. And oftentimes we might throw in another, like I said before, thyme or sage, something that's a little warming for that area, because people need to pull some of those infections out, and the antiseptic, antimicrobial properties of all of those are combined is a really good combination.
Well, and as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about how I'm in the hormonal years where I'm seeing my gums start to get sometimes receding, and other times they're getting swollen, and it's all hormonal. I had this problem during pregnancy, and now it is back.
Yeah.
And there's no pregnancy.
Yeah.
But I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm thinking, well, I could easily make a dry tea mix with some strawberry leaf add a little bit of the Melanthius to help, reduce the discomfort of the gums. Maybe add a little bit of comfrey leaf to encourage rebuilding of the gums. And I could take that easily, and as I'm drinking my tea, I can make sure I swish it around my mouth really well.
Yeah, and a lot of people have their favorite flavors that you can easily add into a tea. If you're a big mint person, throw that in there. The classic over-the-counter antiseptic dental rinses usually have the thyme essential oil, wintergreen essential oil, eucalyptus essential oil. Those are all classic combinations in the commercial blends. And one thing to remember when using something that has a lot of malic acid, like the strawberry, as we said, is rinse it afterwards, because too much malic acid, and this is something any dentist will tell you, will start to take out the tooth enamel. Right. Now, if you're just using it as a rinse and then brushing your teeth and rinsing with water afterwards, that's perfect, because the abrasiveness that it has on your teeth is just taking off that surface bacteria and plaque. If you leave it on there too long, it's just going to keep going. So as with everything, moderation.
Yes, and when you're talking about using it as a dental rinse, are you talking about a fairly dilute amount, or how much? Let's say I had made a tincture bottle up. How much of that bottle would I be using, and how much water to make this rinse?
In just a little shot glass, 1 dropper full.
Okay.
That's just fine. Yeah. And then rinsing it and keeping it in your mouth. If you have Melanthius in it, for example, then keep it in your mouth and then put it on the side where the infection is, and so you start feeling that tingling, and then spit it out. Okay. And then you can do the scrubbing with the toothbrush or just a water rinse as well.
Is there as much malic acid in the leaf as there is in the fruit? Is it pretty much in both, or do we not know?
I'm sure that information is available, but I don't know.
For some scientific person who's actually figured that out.
Right, you're right. Yes.
All right. Well, we are getting to the end of our time here, and I think it's a good time to take a break. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about strawberry with dental leaf, or dental care with strawberry leaf?
I wanted to also mention that a lot of people they are using strawberry for dentistry. It's just a nice thing to have as a snack, dried strawberry to throw in for people that tend to have problems with vitamin C or they have a lot of bleeding in their gums, and it's dried. Okay. It's very compact. I mean, you've lost all of that water mass, so throw that in with some other.
If you throw that in with your tea too, it actually flavors tea quite nicely.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I've done that a few times.
But people that are having a hard time introducing fresh fruit into their diet, travelers, for example, or people that they're running from office to meeting, etc., having a dry fruit mix with those high concentrations of strawberry in it will. That's an easy way to keep it in your body and keep you healthy.
Yeah, it makes great sense too for our kids on the go.
Well, oh yes,
all the soccer parents out there.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Well, I think we've got about, we're about out of time here. So if you'd like more information on strawberry as a medicine, or you'd like to find recipes using strawberry fruit or leaf, check out the Practical Herbalist website and download our folio on strawberry leaf at www.thepracticalherbalist.com, or look for our folios and other publications on Amazon.
Now it's time for Herbalism 101, your opportunity to learn about the inner workings of herbalism, definitions, techniques, and other herbal nitty-gritty. If you want the dirt on herbs, send your question to realherbalismradio.com/herbalism101. We will do our best to answer your question on a future episode of Real Herbalism Radio.
Herbalists use a variety of terms to describe the properties of plants. Antimicrobial is one of them. What does it mean when an herb is antimicrobial?
An antimicrobial is something that prevents the spread or kills a microbe that is in either a body or is growing in another kind of medium. Microbe would be an example of something that you can't see with the naked eye, like a small fungus infection or a protozoa or a bacteria or a virus. We just generally see it as an infection accompanied by inflammation in our bodies.
So antimicrobial covers a wide spectrum of ability to kill bad stuff that you don't want in your body.
Most generally. And what you see in the literature is this plant is antimicrobial, and yet that doesn't mean that it will kill everything. It just means that it is, in general, it will kill some types of fungus, some types of bacteria, some types of viruses. It's just a very, very general term that might not get dysentery, for example, which is a protozoa, but it could get some other type of protozoa.
So when do I want to use an herb that's antimicrobial, or when am I looking for antimicrobial in the herbals that I'm planning to use?
If you're not sure exactly, or you're just what kind of infection a person has, or what kind of infection you have, an antimicrobial, pardon me, is just a broad spectrum, one size fits all kind of treatment. It's better safe than sorry. A lot of herbalists will turn to antimicrobials when they're not exactly sure what something is, and then once they figure out exactly what the infection is caused by, they'll turn to something that's more specific.
So a good example of using an antimicrobial could be you or someone in your family, whomever, has cold symptoms that are, the typical things, with some variety of maybe some flu symptoms too.
Mm-hmm.
So some coughing, some mucus production, maybe nausea, maybe a low-grade fever. You know, definitely what most of us would just say, oh, he's got a cold or he's got a flu.
Right.
That would be a good time to use an antimicrobial
Sure,
selection.
yeah. Another thing to keep in mind is our bodies are very complex. And if you get an infection in one part, your body's going to react by having another infection of some kind, or be open to other infections in another part. If your immune system is suppressed, you're open to getting any kind of other infection. So antimicrobial, it's pretty safe. Garlic would be a really good example of it. And of course, earlier today we talked about strawberry leaf, which is another example of an antimicrobial.
Good. Yes, strawberry leaf is an excellent antimicrobial for the damp environment of your mouth. It
Indeed.
can have all kinds of stuff going in there.
There's just all kinds of fun happening in our mouths.
Lovely. I think that covers it for antimicrobials today.
Herbs in the news. Coffee. Is it healthy or not? Candace and Sue tackled this one after a recent article appeared in Men's Health this spring.
This spring, Men's Health published an article on how to make your coffee truly healthy, in which they assert that black is the only truly nutritious way to take your coffee. Quote, coffee in itself is extremely nutritious. Anything you add is diminishing it, end quote, according to Dr. Peter Martin, director of Vanderbilt University Institute for Coffee Studies. From a practical herbalist perspective, is that really true? Can coffee be healthy and even herbal for modern Americans?
I think what Dr. Martin is discussing is the fact that most people use their coffee as a way to turn it into a regular milkshake. They'll add a lot of sugar, a bunch of syrup, a whole lot of creamer or dairy products of any kind. And in that case, sure, I would absolutely agree with them. And that's way too much sugar for an already sugar-heavy American diet. But there's plenty of other options for adding a little extra flavor into your coffee. And we were talking, Candace, about a couple of those options, like cardamom, which is a nice digestive to add to your coffee. And cardamom would be lovely because coffee tends to agitate the stomach because it's so acidic, and coffee would tend to neutralize that a bit. And cinnamon, for people that have blood sugar problems, cinnamon is a wonderful addition. What were some of the other things that we mentioned?
We had spoken earlier about adding a little bit of burdock or a little bit of dandelion to your coffee mix. Just maybe making, a tablespoon of dandelion or burdock powder in there along with the coffee when you're making your perk coffee.
Mm-hmm. Or you could add some of the cut and sift to your coffee machine. I'm really lazy, and I make my coffee just in a coffee maker. You throw the grounds in there with your cup, and that's it. And throwing something like that in the cut and sift form. I've thrown some cinnamon in there when I've made it, and it's come out really nice. I'm sure that the coffee expert would wrinkle their nose at that, but I thought it tasted delicious.
Well, and in colonial times, they did use dandelion, burdock, chicory root as a coffee substitute, or in part with other coffee grounds. So they got mostly the coffee flavor, but they didn't spend as much money. Mm-hmm. That was their impetus then. Nowadays, the dandelion root and the burdock root would definitely help to counteract the adrenal chemicals that coffee, it stimulates your adrenal system and gets you into that mode, but at the same time, it's producing all these your body's producing all these extra chemicals, and the dandelion root and burdock root help to get those out and support your filtration systems, your liver, and that sort of thing.
Very true. And once you have the coffee already made, it's black, you could stir it or just put a vanilla bean or a cinnamon stick in there as a stirring mechanism to also give you some nice, delicious herbal healing with that, and also make it a tasty addition to the coffee. And of course, a great way of dealing with allergies is adding local honey.
Exactly.
And that's one way kind of that's been traditionally used to deal with people with allergies. And of course, coffee in itself, which we mentioned on our website in the encyclopedia page on coffee, is another way of treating allergies. It helps drain the sinuses, and it kind of speeds up the system that help you get over those unpleasant times when the pollen is just drifting through the air, as it does in our lovely Willamette Valley.
It does, yes. And you had mentioned antioxidants. They made a point of noting that antioxidants are very high in coffee. Do you want to talk about that a little?
Oh, yes. The quote actually unnerved me a bit when I read it. Coffee is #1 source of antioxidants in the U.S. diet, according to a study from the University of Scranton. Coffee is our #1 source of antioxidants. That's terrifying to me. We should be taking in other sources such as beans or berries. That's where we should be getting our #1 source of antioxidants. And when you look at the amount of antioxidants that are in just regular pinto beans or red beans or berries, it's extremely high. So you don't even have to have that much. Half a cup, for example, of the red beans have over 4,000 count antioxidants. That's a lot.
That is a lot. That is a lot. Though most of us don't think about whether we're actually suited to drinking coffee. Some of us actually are, and it's quite beneficial. Some of us aren't maybe as well suited to it. To be using it as our primary source, whether we're suited to it or not, for our antioxidants, seems like, for drinking our medicine, that doesn't seem wise.
Yeah, it's again, we're out of balance. Moderation is the key. If you've got 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day, okay, but more than that, it's time to do a little bit of re-examination.
That sounds exactly right. And it is true that coffee can be an excellent herbal medicine. If you'd like to find more information about coffee, both as an herbal and as the general properties that it has, is useful around the house, take a look at the Herbal Encyclopedia page on coffee on The Practical Herbalist. That's www.thepracticalherbalist.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Real Herbalism Radio. Your hosts have been Candace Hunter and Susier Lubu. To find more information and recipes from today's episode, or to leave a comment or suggestion, visit us online at realherbalismradio.com. Feeling social, you can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/thepracticalherbalist. Don't forget to look up our ebooks and herbal folios at amazon.com. Use the search terms Practical Herbalist. This episode of Real Herbalism Radio was sponsored by Mountain Rose Herbs, purveyors of high-quality organic bulk herbs, gourmet spices, loose-leaf teas, essential oils, herbal extracts, and natural body care ingredients. Visit them at www.mountainroseherbs.com. If you would like to be a sponsor of Real Herbalism Radio, just contact us through our website at realherbalismradio.com/contact. Till next time, this has been Patrick with Real Herbalism Radio and thepracticalherbalist.com.